Welcome to Empower Her Radio, the podcast for healthcare moms who want to break free from limiting beliefs, build unshakable confidence, and step into the truest expression of themselves, both personally and professionally. I'm your host, Corey Wynn. I'm a wife, a mom, a doctor of physical therapy, and a peak performance strategist. Working with highly motivated women to transform their lives and inspire those around them is what truly lights my soul on fire. Each episode, whether it's a solo session filled with actionable strategies or an inspiring interview with a woman who has overcome significant obstacles, is designed to leave you feeling worthy and confident in the value you have to offer everyone around you. I hope you walk away empowered and ready to take that next step to lead your life on purpose. Now, let's dive into today's show. Hey guys, I wanted to pop in real quick with a special offer today. Everything that I do here at Empower Her Radio and in my private coaching practice, Elevate and Empower, is to empower and equip women, specifically moms, with everything that they could possibly need to live their dream life. So I want to give you my dream life blueprint today that can help you get started with that. Just head to corywynn.com/dreamlifeblueprint and you can find that in the show notes. All right, now back to today's show. Hello and welcome everyone. I'm so excited this week to have Emilee Gisler, wife, mom of 3 kids under 6, with a background as a physical therapist assistant with a special interest in pelvic health, who successfully transitioned into working from home full-time as an online service provider. I am super excited to have her with us today, as so many of my clients and my listeners are wondering about what else they can do with their expertise, what else out there could be fun, could fulfill their purpose and passion. That's not the typical grind. So, Emilee, thank you for being here today.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah. So, I love your bio, but I did not want to read it all myself. I want you to tell our listeners more about yourself, where you started, and kind of where you are now.
Yeah. So my background is as a physical therapist assistant, and I have been was working as a PTA since 2016. Loved it, loved what I did. I worked in all different settings. I started off in a skilled nursing facility and really loved that population. And as I started to have kids, which was in 2018, so I had my first, and that kind of just shifted things in me. I started to be like, maybe I need to have some more family friendly environments. I started at that point to think about working from home, maybe if that was an option. But at that time, I was very much like, I don't even know what I would be able to do.
Right.
It felt like that wasn't really an option. So
Right.
I switched and went into more outpatient, thinking that would be a little bit better for family friendly type stuff.
Mhm.
And then I had my second, and that was kind of right before COVID happened. And same thing, I switched settings again, thinking now that I have two, I need to have more family friendly. So I just kind of kept hopping around the more kids I had, trying to figure out like how I could do this working full time and being a mom as well.
Mhm.
It was at this point that I started to specialize in pelvic health and kind of go more into the women's health. I mean, I've had 2 babies at this point. I could see the lack of care for like postpartum and prenatal and just like knowing what you could even do. I mean, I didn't have much schooling in that as a PTA.
Mhm.
And so I started to realize that this was something that I was very passionate about, and it was a big need in our little small town here in the northeastern corner of Washington. So
Uh-huh.
I really started to dive into that, took some Herman and Wallace courses, and really started to specialize in that area for the last kind of 3 years that I was practicing. But then cue ahead to 2022, and I had my third baby. And this is when I really, in my mind, was like, I don't think I can do this anymore. I don't think I can work full time as a PTA, doing hands on care, working with 12 patients a day or whatever, seeing 10 to 12 patients a day and having to leave on a whim if one of my kids is sick or something happens at school or my kids were sick all the time at this point, it felt like. And I was like out of sick leave. I'm what am I doing? Like, I just want to be able to go help them and not feel guilty that I'm leaving my job. So
I
I really was
so
just in this
I
constant push and pull.
I resonate with that so much. I remember when my daughter was 10 months old, there was one month that we just prayed the whole week every
Yeah.
week that we would make it through the week. My husband and I worked for
Mhm.
the same company, so I totally get it. And that is huge for so many moms who are listening. So I wanted
Yeah.
to validate that because it's true. Your kids are sick and you're like, well, now what do I do?
Mm.
Who's going to cover
Yeah.
my patients?
Exactly. It was when I was pregnant with my third that my kids, it just seemed like one week my oldest would be sick and then he'd pass it to my youngest and then we would get it. And by that time, I'm out of sick leave. So I'm just going to work sick at this point, like wearing a
Hmm.
mask, you know? So it just really was, and then I thought, oh my gosh, when I have this third, it's going to be my oldest gets sick, my middle gets sick, my youngest gets sick, I get sick. Like it's going to be just this ongoing thing. And so that at that point I was like, I really don't know how I'm going to do this. And I
Hmm.
didn't know, I really knew that we needed two incomes just with, our situation. And I did not know if there was an option for someone like me as a hands-on clinical care PTA, who really loved what I was doing, but was starting to love it a little less each kid that I had because I just felt like it wasn't working for my family anymore.
Hmm.
And I didn't know that I had any options for working from home. But I specifically remember when I had my third, I was in the hospital holding him literally hours after he'd been born. And I just, in my head, thought, I am not going back to work. I will find a way to work from home.
Hmm.
And I don't know what it is. I don't care if I leave healthcare altogether. Like, I don't
Right.
even care what I do. I will find a way to work from home. I am not going back to work. Like, that's all I was thinking about at that time. Like, really all the hormones, but those are my thoughts.
Yes.
And so, like, I get home from the hospital a couple days later and I am just searching. I'm just searching online, looking for on Indeed, like searching anything for remote or hybrid or something that I can do
Uh-huh.
from home. And I just happened to come across on like a mom Facebook group, someone had mentioned um, becoming a virtual assistant. And I'd never heard that before, never heard that phrase or that job title or anything.
Hmm.
So I started to look into it. And that's kind of where it went from there.
I love that. When you think about working from home, are you still doing full-time hours? Tell me about, tell us what you're doing now specifically.
Yeah. Yeah. So once I kind of came across that, I researched it, becoming a virtual assistant. And what happened was I had reached out to somebody who had a course that would teach you how to start your business as a freelancer and start working as a virtual assistant. This was not, still at this point, I'm like, this is not healthcare related at all.
Right.
I'm definitely going to be leaving healthcare to do this. And I was like, that's okay. My goal is just to work from home for at least the first year. So I can be home to nurse my baby. I don't have to worry about pumping or any of that. That was something I just hated doing.
Uh-huh.
So that was
Very
my goal. I'm like,
isolating.
yeah, if I can just work for a year from home, that was my only goal. So I'm like, okay, maybe I can figure out a way to like make $3,000 a month. That was like my financial goal. And then we can make it by and then we'll go from there. So I ended up purchasing this course. I talked to my husband about it and I'm explaining to him what I'm going to do. Like, I'm thinking he's going to think I'm crazy. But he literally, as I'm talking to him, because I don't even have a laptop at this point, and he's like, all right, well, he shows me his phone. He goes, I just bought you a laptop, so it looks like you're doing it. And he bought me a MacBook, was
I
like
love
all
that.
in. He believed in me. So I was like, that gave me kind of the push to
Mhm.
purchase the course, which was like $1,000 course. So at this point, I'm like $2,000 invested and I haven't even started. Um,
I
so
think
talk
that
about
sounds
being
so
like,
familiar for so many of us who are like, all right, I am doing this. We are going
yeah,
to figure out a way. I'm not looking back.
yep, we just jumped in. And so I took this course, and as I'm kind of going through the course and I'm starting to kind of put myself out there to figure out if I can find virtual assistant clients, I started to realize there's a lot of healthcare related online businesses out there, and even brick and mortar businesses that are looking like could use someone like me with my background. And my wheels just started to turn in how I could maybe make this work and still use my degree and still use my background,
Right.
still use the expertise that I had. And so that's where I started to shift. And at this point, the person I purchased the course from, she didn't have a healthcare background. So I really went out on my own at this point. And once I kind of it clicked and I started looking for pelvic health business owners, people that, I could really make a difference in with my specific knowledge, like my ability to talk to patients,
Hmm.
my ability to write educational topics and this stuff, like um, that's when it just blew up with leads for people to work with.
Hmm.
And so within 6 weeks, I had fully booked out as a virtual assistant. I was making more than I was as a PTA, still on maternity leave. And this was before my maternity leave ran out. And I'm like, fully working as a virtual assistant from home, working about 100 hours, maybe a little over a month.
Oh,
So 100
wow.
hours a month. And that was where it went. After I had done that for several months, I started to kind of think my specialty, and the way that I was working with my clients definitely was more management and more wanting to be involved in the strategy of their businesses and less just in the doing these tasks that they're asking me to do. I found
Right.
myself always being like, well, why are we doing this? Or why don't we do it this way? Or like always trying to figure out like how we could get more leads in or whatever. My brain was kind of going that way. So
Mhm.
that's when I shifted into online business management. I took another course. I invested again, another about $1,000 on another course, became a certified online business manager. Kind of shifted the clients I was looking for, rebooked out with online business management clients. At that point, had like doubled the income that I was making as a PTA before. And I had only been working from home for about 6 months at this point. So that's currently what I'm doing. I am an online business manager. I have about 5 clients, all in the women's health, pelvic health, PT, some not PT, but that kind of sphere
Mhm.
for online businesses. And then aside from that, more recently, kind of the tug at my heart, the real thing that I had always had in the back of my mind once I realized that there was a niche here for me and that I could work from home and that as a PT, I didn't have to just be doing on or hands-on care.
Mhm.
I just felt like other moms needed to know this that were in
Mhm.
healthcare, and I felt like so many women didn't know that they had this option to do anything like this, working from home, starting their own business, and that this was like you could, legit do this and you could make good money. You don't have to be stuck doing hands-on patient care for the rest of your life if that's not what you want to do.
Yeah.
So that's when I decided to make a course to teach people how to become kind of a healthcare specialized virtual assistant, which is what I started off doing. And then just kind of getting their start, getting their foot in the door, how to start your business, how to land clients, how to become successfully working from home as an online service provider.
I love that. I mean, we were talking just before the show started about how many of us feel pigeonholed in this is the degree this I went to school for. And I don't know your background as far as how you grew up, but my family was very much, my parents stayed in the same jobs for 35 years. They were going
Yeah.
to go, they were going to have a pension, they were going to have 401k, they were going to have retirement. And how could you possibly leave something so secure? And I
Hmm.
think some of us in this generation still have a little bit of that mindset. So when you think of talking to somebody like that who is a mom and wants to be at home with her babies, but is like, oh, but I have benefits and I have this, what would you say? What kind of, I don't know if you had to deal with that hump or if you just were like,
Hmm.
no, we're doing this, but what would you say to them?
Yeah, at the time when I was working hands-on in outpatient or skilled nursing or whatever, we did get benefits through my husband. So the benefit side of it, at least healthcare side of it, my husband was covering. But I did have a 401k, and I did have obviously like sick time and vacation and all that
Right,
stuff, which you don't get when you start your own business and you're working
right,
freelance. You cover all that on your own.
right.
So that definitely was something, and the security. Like you do feel like when you're working for somebody else, you feel some sort of security. Now that I've been removed from that world and my mind is thinking outside of that little box, I feel so much more secure being my own boss, having multiple clients. So if, say, I do lose a client or I want to step away from a client, I still have 4 other clients here where I'm getting other income from along with the course. So I have 5 different streams of income coming in. Whereas when I was working for somebody else, if let's say I had a couple people on my schedule cancel, like they have the ability to tell me, well, why don't you clock out during that time since you're not
Right.
seeing anybody?
Yep.
And that could happen on a whim. Like there's no security in that. And there would be times where it would be low census and they, well, why don't you just not come in today? Things like that, where it's like,
Oh
well, I
yeah.
can't take vacation or sick for this. So
Right.
I'm not getting paid just because patients aren't showing up. And that to me, like thinking back on it, it's like I felt so secure and like I needed to have an employee or an employer. But now that I'm my own boss, I just feel like I have the control. I get to choose how much work I put into this, how far it goes, how many clients I have, how many hours I want to work. Like that is in my control. And yes, there's certain things that aren't in my control. Like if a client decides to leave, that's, I have in our contract, we have 30 days to kind of end things, wrap things up. And then but within that 30 days, I can be looking for another client or doing different things. So I personally feel so much more secure doing what I'm doing now, saving for my own retirement my own way. And since then, also, my husband left his job and went out on his own as well. So we both are actually self employed now and figured out the healthcare side of it and all that, which I think a lot of people feel scared to look into or feel like it's going to cost them a lot of money. But in our experience, it has been just about the same as what we were getting before and about the same, financial investment into our healthcare and our 401ks and all that stuff.
That's awesome. I think that level of security is that piece that a lot of us are beginning to think, well, is it really secure?
Hmm.
New management comes in, they do layoffs.
Yeah.
During COVID, especially, I was working PRN. All of my hours were cut, all of
Yeah.
them. And it was like, oh, and I mean, I had worked PRN for years, but consistently. So that was just a whole new realm for me of not
Hmm.
having those hours. But clearly the full-time staff needed the hours before I did.
Yeah.
So when
When
you talk,
COVID happened for us, I had just come off maternity leave for my second, and previously I had been working for two places. I was working PRN at the skilled nursing facility that I started at, and then
Mhm.
I was working part time at the hospital, which was an outpatient clinic. And when I tried to go back, they both said, well, because of COVID, you can't split places. You have to choose one or the other. And so at that point,
Um,
same thing. I'm like, well, this is totally out of my control. Now I'm either going to work PRN at one place or I'm going to work only part time hours at the other, and
mhm.
there's no security in how many hours I'm even going to be getting with COVID back to work. So I totally relate to that. I mean, that was scary at that point, trying to figure out where I'm going to go. I ended up leaving both and starting full time at somewhere else. So it's like
Mhm.
the third place after the third
Right.
or second kid, I switched careers again or switched settings again.
Yeah. Well, and with what you're doing now, would you mind speaking to just kind of exactly what you're doing, like just to give people an idea
Yeah.
of what you do now?
Yeah. So when I was a virtual assistant, basically that means that you're assisting. They are handing over tasks to you for you to complete that are kind of behind the scenes tasks. So, for instance, doing scheduling or administrative tasks, or maybe helping with social media, creating graphics, writing captions if that's kind of in your wheelhouse. Maybe helping write weekly emails or blogs, just depending on what your services are. There's a wide variety of things that you can do. But as a virtual assistant, it was very much so, here's what I need you to do. I'm handing it over to you. You're going to handle these tasks. As an
Hmm.
OBM now, as an online business manager, I am more in kind of a partnership with my clients. I'm kind of like their strategic right hand where we really discuss what's going on. And then I help with the back end systems of that. So making sure that things are automated, streamlined, everything is running as it should in the background. I mostly work with online businesses now. I have one client that does have a brick and mortar, but everybody else is kind of an online business.
Hmm.
So I do their systems, I do their project management. So project management just means any project that they may have. So whether that's I want to do a new freebie, like I need to launch a new freebie, or I have a new offering, like I'm doing a course or whatever it is, whatever the
Right.
project is in the business, I'm managing it, making sure that we have everything listed out, giving due dates, assigning tasks, and then delegating to the team, which is my third service is team management. So I do systems management, I do project management, and I do team management. And those are kind of
Mhm.
my three services that I do virtually for all of my clients.
Okay. Now, for somebody who is in the world of therapy, OT, PT, speech, do you feel like, I know you've mentioned that you've more than replaced your salary. Do you feel like that's pretty, um, what happens most often in this situation? Or is it like a lot of things, you get what you put into it?
Yeah, I think it definitely depends on how much you're willing to put into it and what your goals are. For me, like I said, my goal was just to make $3,000 a month. That was going to be a little less than what I was making previously as a PTA. But what ended up happening is, once I realized the possibilities and I realized that all of this was in my control, that like however many clients I landed, I was going to make that much more, and however many hours I had available to work too. So there's several factors into it, but I do personally, kind of being in this space now and talking to other people who have done similar things. Once you get into it and you get your foot in the door, it does feel like the possibilities are just endless. I mean, it really is. If you just want to do client work and you have 100 hours a month, kind of like I did, I feel like you can definitely replace, if more than replace, your income as a PT, OT, CODA, PTA.
Mhm.
speech, whatever it is that you're doing.
Mhm.
Um, if you have more time than that and you can work full-time hours, I mean, that to me is like, I don't even have full-time hours to work right now. I have 100 hours a month and I've more than doubled my income. So when the time comes when all my kids are in school and I'll have more hours to work, like that's what I'm excited for. Cause I'm like, then
Yeah.
my financial goals are just, I feel like the possibilities are endless. It really is what you put into it is what you're going to get back.
Yeah. When it when you think about, like, clients and whatnot, are you able to take vacation? I think a lot of times the other caveat to leaving that stability of the income is, "Oh, well, I'm on PTO and I'm on PTO." I don't have to
Hmm.
think about this. And I think a lot of my clients and a lot of my peers are concerned about leaving that for fear that, "Oh, I'm gonna have to work all the time," or "I'm gonna be
Hmm.
expected to do, things after dinner and be called on all the time." How do you work with that? How do you create boundaries?
Yeah, so in the beginning, I had no boundaries. I was just so excited to be working from home that I literally worked whenever my client like reached out to me. I was like, "Yeah, let me do that right now." I
Uh-huh.
think I was just so excited to be doing this dream life that I thought I
Uh-huh.
never was going to be able to do that I really had zero boundaries. Now that I've been in it a while, I have my own schedule that I create. So I know what hours I want to work. I want to work when my kids are sleeping or when they're at school, and that's kind
Mhm.
of a hard boundary for me. I am upfront with my clients in the beginning about this. And really, the stuff that I'm doing, it's not like, oh, you need to be at your desk at this amount of time. It's just
Right.
as long as you meet the deadline, you do it whenever you want. You do it at midnight, you can do it at 5 in the morning, you can do it in the middle of the
Right.
day.
Right.
So I set my own schedule and I have a 24-hour to 48-hour, depending on if it's a weekend or not, response time. So if clients reach
Mhm.
out to me, I don't need to respond right away. As far as vacations go, that is something, if I work ahead, say I want to take a week off or whatever, and it's the third week of the month, I do a little bit more in those first 2 weeks of the month because that's kind of how I work is in a monthly retainer. So I
Right.
get paid ahead of time for that month's worth of hours. And if I want to work more or less or spread it out evenly, that's up to me. So if I want to work all my hours in the first 2 weeks, I can do that and I can take the last 2 weeks off, however it is. So I really get to kind of dictate that. If I didn't want to do that, then another option is to hire, you can always subcontract out, which is not something I've ever done, but I know other people that do that. They can hire a team member that's kind of another independent contractor, just like what
Mhm.
we are. You can subcontract out various things so that if you really just want to, not even have to think about it, you can outsource your client work to somebody else. So that's an option too. But I personally really enjoy my business. I really like doing what I do now. So I
Mhm.
almost feel I have to remind myself like, okay, like put it away for a little bit because it's exciting to me to get to do what I'm doing now.
Mhm.
So I don't feel like it's become a burden or something that I'm just doing all the time. I do find myself thinking about things all the time and like, how can I progress? How can I move forward? But that's just kind of my personality. So I
Yeah.
really enjoy what I do. I don't really want to take complete time off all the time. But, in the case of holidays and things like that, I just work a little ahead in the beginning or afterwards, depending on the time of the month, and then let my clients know, hey, I'm going to be off for these days. And yeah,
Yeah.
it is what it is.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think so many people, even now, take notes home, take documentation home. I think some
Yeah.
of the companies that I worked with, you had 28 to 24 to 48 hours to get your notes done. And
Hmm.
especially the pediatric therapists I know are taking loads of documentation home every night.
Yeah.
And I mean, that does the same. I have friends who are engineers, same thing.
Yeah.
They work all day
Hmm.
long and then their kids go to sleep and then they work in the evenings. Um,
And a
Boundaries
lot
are
of
so
times that's
incredibly
like
important.
unpaid. Like when you're going
Mhm.
and doing that documentation, that's like, well, you were supposed to get it done in your hours. And if you didn't, that's on you. You got to make it up. So
Right.
that's the thing. It's like everything that I do now, I directly get reimbursed for. It affects me financially if I do it or if I don't do it. Whereas before it was like, well, you're just getting paid this. If you don't do it in this amount of hours, then that's on you. Because I was at the point where I was documenting during my lunchtime. I was documenting while I was pumping. I was documenting while I was supposed to be on a break. Like I never had in the time that I was working in outpatient, I would work the full 8 hours. I remember I couldn't even bring a salad to lunch because that would require it would took too long to chew the salad and
Yep.
eat it. And I also couldn't do it and type at the same time. Like it was something, it was just, I was like, I can't eat a salad anymore. Like I have to eat something I can quickly just grab, like salami, cheese, and crackers, or like a sandwich, something easy you can eat really quickly. So looking back on it now, that was one of the things when I started working from home. I'm like, I can literally eat whatever sounds good to me. I don't have to like eat what's most convenient, or I don't have to only eat a granola bar throughout the day. It was
Uh-huh.
just those little things that I was like, I didn't even realize how miserable I was until I left. And now I have freedom again, you know?
Well, and the ability to take care of yourself. I mean,
Yeah.
that other message is one of the main things that I talk with my clients with all the time is one, recognizing you're in survival mode and then how you get
Yeah.
out of it. So just
Hmm.
hearing you say like I can eat when I'm hungry
Yeah.
versus well, I don't have a break for another 2 hours or like I used to take my snack with me into the bathroom because
Yeah.
I was like I
Yep.
have to go to the bathroom and I've got to eat something. And so many moms, especially new moms who are pumping, that is so isolating at times, but also really
Yeah.
stressful. I had
Yes.
15 minutes here and lunch and 15 minutes later in the day to pump, and good luck. I hope, if you're a
Hope it works
nursing
out.
mom or a pumping mom out there, you know exactly what it's like. You hope
Yeah.
that you'll be able to get done and eat at the same time and document around your pump. And yes.
Yeah, the last place that I was at, after I had just started working there because, like I said, that was the COVID time. I ended up leaving both those places, starting somewhere new. So I had left my 4-month-old at home. I was definitely full time pumping at that time when I was at work, and I had asked them, what that was going to be like for me, making sure that was okay, and they said, "We're not really going to schedule you any break times. What we'll do is we'll just put your next patient on heat or whatever modality, and they'll just wait for you until you're done."
Oh,
And so the
no.
stress of that, going downstairs, hurrying, trying to pump, knowing that a patient is waiting for me, knowing that if I don't finish in time, my other coworker is going to have to take over and take two patients on at the same time. Like, I was hardly getting any milk out because of how stressed I was.
Uh-huh.
I'm also documenting at the same time. I'm trying to drink my water. I just remember I was in survival mode. And I
Mhm.
was in survival mode since I started having kids, and I was trying to work full time. And you're right, trying to get out of that. And maybe that was why I had no boundaries when I started working from home, because I was
Uh-huh.
so used to just go, 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 go. And you don't need to rest. You don't need to have breaks. Like, you don't need to do any of this because you're used to that. And I think it does take some stepping back and kind of reflecting and being like, I don't have to live like that anymore. Like,
Uh-huh.
my life doesn't have to be like that. I get to choose how it's going to be. And that once you feel like you can finally take a breath, it's just like a whole new world.
Yeah, yeah. I think that just hearing you say that is so important to so many moms because so many I know are living in that same cycle. I talked with a client just the other day and I said, "You're in survival mode." And she's like,
Yeah.
"You're the second person who's told me that. How do you know that?" And of
Yeah.
course, we talked about all the things that she was mentioning, but so often you don't know. Like
Yeah.
you said, you didn't know how bad it was until you
Hmm.
left and you were like, "How did I make it through that?"
Yeah.
And that was
And
like
part of,
my first step to going from
yeah.
full-time to PRN because it was like, I can't do this. I'm missing things with my daughter and pumping was a disaster.
Yeah. Yeah, and at that time too, when before my husband had left, he was working for the Forest Service. He was a wildland firefighter, and we have a lot of wildfires in this area. So he was basically gone 6 months out of the year. So he would be traveling for about 18 days. He would come home for 2. And then he would travel for 18
Wow.
days and he would come home for 2. So on top of working full time, having kids kind of back to back to back, dealing with the pumping and the drop offs and making lunches and all this stuff. My husband also was pretty much gone for that time.
Mhm.
And so I really, really was in survival mode. And that was a lot of it for why I decided to do whatever I had to do with that third one, thinking that my husband is not going to be there. I'm going to have a third child now, like just all these things. And then on top of that, feeling like the time I'm spending with my kids that I've waited my whole life to have, I'm really only seeing them from 5 to 7 at night,
Right.
where I'm rushing them through dinner, rushing them through bath time, rushing them to bed, and then sitting down feeling like just done for the day. And
Uh-huh.
I'm like, I'm seeing them for the worst part of the day when they're in a bad mood too. They've spent all day with somebody else. And I just was like, this is not the life that I want to live. I don't want to see my kids for 2 hours a day and be stressed out and then have them be stressed out and then rush, rush, rush everybody all day long.
Yeah. Yeah. I love hearing that. Is there anything else that you can think of that we haven't chatted about, a topic that we haven't discussed, anything you just want people to know?
I think the main thing that I just really want, something I'm just so passionate about for wanting everybody who's in healthcare, every woman who's in healthcare, especially the moms out there, because I just, that's when it shifted for me, was when I became a mom, is just to know that you, if hands-on patient care, working, whether you're working full-time, part-time, or PRN, whatever, if that is not something you want to be doing anymore, you do not have to do it. And you can still find a way to use your degree, use your background, and kind of think unconventionally and make it work for you, whether that's starting your own business or doing something else. It doesn't have to be what I'm doing or what you're doing or what so and so's doing. You can really carve your own path. It's just a matter of will. For me, at the point that I had my third baby, my back was against the wall. I really felt like I couldn't continue on any further like that. And so I think for a lot of people, it has to get to that point. But once it does, and you really start to just look into other options, that's when so many things can open up for you. And I just feel like everybody, I mean, we are smart people. Like those of
Yes.
us who went to school, like I got my degree in exercise science first, and then I went to PTA school and did all these things. Like we can figure these things out. We do not have to be stuck in anything. We have
Uh-huh.
a whole world of opportunities out there. It's just a matter of figuring out what works for you.
Well, and just opening your eyes and recognizing that there is something else out there because like you said, if there aren't people like you out there who are going to push the envelope and say, no, there's got to be a different way, that opens the floodgates for the rest of us,
Hmm.
like me, who are a little bit more concrete thinkers going, well, what would I do?
Yeah, and that's how I felt like I was very much a concrete
That,
thinker too. I like to be told, "Well, this is how you need to go to work. This is what you need to do during your day."
right.
You get stuff signed off by the lead PT. I very much was like, "Tell me what to do and I'll do it." And just kind of stepping out of that has just really expanded my horizons. And I mean, that is definitely why I created the course. I call it One Brave Decision is the title of it, because I really feel like it just takes one brave decision to get you out of that. For me,
Mhm.
it was that decision in the hospital, and then from there, it was just like one other brave decision and one other brave decision. And it just kind of kept going from there.
I love that. Oh, my goodness. How can people get in touch with you? Because I want to make sure that they can.
Yeah, so I have a couple things. So I have a couple resources for people if like you're interested in kind of figuring out what else is out there. I do have a free resource that goes into 5 different opportunities for those working in healthcare that want to work from home. So it kind of just lists it out, tells you what you need to know to go into that field, whether it be a virtual assistant or other. And so that's something that you can opt into. And then I recently did a master class that I recorded, and now I'm giving that recording away for free as well. And it goes into how to become a healthcare specialized virtual assistant. And so that really just outlines exactly what you need to do as far as starting your business, and then what you need to do to land clients and things like that. So it really just goes through the whole spiel on that. And then aside from that, if you want to get in touch with me or get a hold of me, I do have Instagram, which is kind of what I'm most active on for social media. It's just at Emilee.virtualservices. And then I also have a email list. And so you can always just email me at Emilee.Gisler@gmail.com.
Um, well, I will make sure that all of those things are in the show notes. I so appreciate that you are here today and taking the time because all of us mamas are out there looking for that next thing of trying to figure out how to balance work and home life
Hmm.
during those years when home life is so important.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Thank you for having me too.
Thank you for tuning in to today's show. If this episode resonated with you, I would truly appreciate a 5-star review. Your feedback is so important to me. Additionally, if today's topics have sparked a desire for more in your life and you're unsure about the next step, I have a special offer for you. I'm offering a free call to explore how my high level coaching and strategizing can help you gain clarity on your goals, prioritize what is most important to you, and refocus on yourself in the process. Simply head over to coreywin.com/free call. That's www.coreyWinn.com/free call. Thanks for joining me, and I look forward to seeing you on the next episode.